Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to be reacting to 11 bartenders make margarita from the Epicurious channel. Last week I did this for the old fashions. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I work as a bartending teacher like once a week or so, and I've done that for a long time, kind of on and off for 15 years, more recently in the past few years, as a way to get out from behind the computer. Yet here I am still. We're going to be reacting to the Epicurious video where they have 11 different types of bartenders create a margarita. It looks like there's going to be some drastic variability to everything too, and they have, I think, classic bartenders and Flair and experimental and the whole thing. Yeah, I figured let's do another one because some of y'all had asked for that, which is wonderful. Thanks. And if you're new here, maybe hit some buttons below or on the side here. But let's get into the video.
The elements of a classic margarita are a good tequila, an orange liqueur, which is Cointreau, freshly squeezed lime juice, and some sort of sweetener, my agave syrup. And really, these are the only 4 ingredients that you need for a good margarita.
Yeah, I think that's pretty right on. I would actually make the case you don't even need like triple sec, or she's using Cointreau, like orange liqueur is what people typically use. Some people get really gassed up when they discover that a lot of margaritas are made with Cointreau or Grand Marnier. They think it's like they found the secret sauce to make the perfect margarita, which I think it tastes good in there. If you like it, that's good, but you can actually make it even without that. I think really you just need the tequila, the lime, and any sort of sweetener.
I'm gonna put some fresh ice in here. I'm gonna give it a really, really good shake. A margarita should be shaken about 15 times to make it really extremely cold. So then I'm gonna take a rocks glass. I like to do a half salt rim. That gives people the choice whether they want the salt or not. The orange allows the salt to go on very easily.
Yeah, that's like a thing I had learned from a bartender a few years ago, that orange, I mean, you can use lime or lemon or whatever. For whatever reason, we've noticed that orange sticks better with salt if you want to put salt or tahini on the rim. And that's been a more in style way to serve margaritas, is where you only put it on half of the glass. And I kind of like that because not everybody wants salt or tahini in their margarita. And so it allows them to drink it with or without it if they haven't otherwise requested something. So yeah, no, I like how that is being made and how she's doing it.
A large ice cube keeps it extra cold. We finish it off with a little bit of a lime wheel here to give it some color.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. That's not that different from how I would make mine. The way I would make mine that's a little different is, and I actually learned this from one of the places that I bartended in the past couple of years, is I usually do Blanco tequila. Reposado's fine too, but I like it with Blanco a little bit better. I'll use something like Altos is a pretty cool brand, which is pretty cost effective. And even if you watch like the Drink Masters show on Netflix, which is basically like Hell's Kitchen or like Chopped or something, but for drinks. It's like a drinking competition. A lot of people use Altos. I think that's a pretty cost-effective, good for mixing type drink. And then one of the things that we do, and that I learned from a colleague of mine, was to, instead of putting triple sec or an agave, swap that for honey syrup instead. Kind of like mimics the similar flavor of like an orange liqueur without being like overwhelming. It's also similar to what's called like a Tommy's margarita, which is when people just do lime, agave syrup, and tequila. So we do that, but we do it with honey. And I don't know why, it just hits for me. So feel free to try that out if you're somebody making a margarita for yourself right now, which you should.
Unlike the martini, unlike the old fashioned, I am less draconian in how you do a margarita. I think you could do them many different ways. Each bar has their own personality with it. So the margarita I'm making is known as a Tommy's margarita. It was invented in San Francisco in the 90s at...
What'd I just say? Tommy's margarita. Yeah, Tommy's margarita is good. The version I make is similar to Tommy's, but like I said, I swap agave for honey. And yeah, I agree with Tim here that like... a lot of people have like wildly, drastically different ways to make margaritas, and I don't think that those are wrong. I think a margarita is a little bit more of a fun drink that you can play with. So I like seeing the different takes on it versus something like a Manhattan or an old fashioned or a martini, where I kind of want a little bit of like, I want some trueness to form on those.
A bar called Tommy's Mexican. So when it comes to a margarita, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of folks on here that does it the classic way. You're going to have your tequila, You're going to have your lime juice. No difference here on that one. A lot of people are going to use orange liqueur. I am going to use agave syrup. The agave loves the lime. So we're going to put a full ounce of lime juice in here. When it comes to your regular margaritas, you can pretty much use any kind of tequila you want. You can use a silver blanco. I find that with these ingredients, it works best with the reposado. Tommy's Mexican themselves use a reposado. Who am I to argue with that? Now, the question of the rim of a margarita. Some people want absolutely no salt. Some people want salt. Some people want spicy salt. All those things. I'm not going to use salt if I have no information on it because I don't want to do that. But if I use salt, I have a hard, fast rule. I am going to do a half rim of salt around it. Now, we're shaking this margarita.
I mean, see, that's kind of the new, most modern, unless somebody wants full rim of salt, that's kind of the right way to do it.
Small glass into large glass. I filled the small with my spirits. I filled the large with my ice. Why do I do that? Because maybe I get distracted and I got to walk around, and that way the ice is not sitting in here and the drink is going bad. Citrus loves agitation, and the way that it combines, it changes the complexion of the cocktail. Citrus works well with aggressive and violent ice. When it comes to no citrus, it does not work as well. You're just trying to dilute the cocktail. Citrus is meant to change the cocktail.
Yeah.
I always suggest to people to use the chicken wing of here. That ice is going to hit every part of that inner cylinder. I would say 8 to 10 seconds is the good amount. Opening's always hard for people. Sometimes use brute force, but you should be able to just hit it like that. We're going to fill our glass with ice. Then we get to the part that I kind of have a little bit of an issue with, but I understand it completely. Margaritas almost universally come with a lime on there. It looks better. I understand that. It adds color to it. The thing about it is people tend to take this off so much and squeeze this in there. It's already got the perfect amount of lime juice. You're putting too much citrus in it, but I can't fight tradition.
Yeah, I mean, this is the right way to do it, right? And he made a good point here with like when you're shaking any sort of like sour drink, which a margarita technically is a sour, it's a type of sour. You're trying to change the texture of the drink. There should almost be like a foaminess sitting on the top of your margarita if you're doing it correctly. If not, it's either like you're not shaking it hard enough or you're maybe missing something in there. But yeah, and the same thing. If you get a lime on your margarita, don't throw it in there. It's already got probably a lot of lime juice in your drink, and you don't need any more. So I'm in agreement with this guy, as per usual.
I work at Paradise Sauce, which is going to be a tiki bar. We try to use the same templates of classics, but using unexpected ingredients. These are going to be the Bitterman's Hellfire bitters. They just give a really beautiful habanero spice to the cocktail without totally overwhelming it. You're going to start off with smaller, more intense ingredients that cost a little bit less. So if you mess up, you can just toss it out and you won't have to worry about wasting any booze. I'm going to be using some lime cordial, galangal agave, and hibiscus grenadine.
Lime cordial. Lime cordial is kind of different than lime juice, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. Lime cordial is basically like a lime simple syrup you kind of make. So a lot of a drink that famously is supposed to be made with lime cordial is a drink called like a gimlet, which is a gin drink. Basically, it's a gin version of a margarita almost. It's just, the lime cordial and the gin, right? But a lot of people will make it with just straight lime juice and simple syrup because they don't want to go through the effort of making a lime cordial because they don't last that long. It's kind of a lot of work, and sometimes it's only going in one drink. What you don't want to do is don't buy that lime cordial from the store that comes and it's like super bright yellow, green. That stuff's fine for do whatever you want. But if you're looking for a more craft experience, I typically wouldn't use those types of syrups for anything other than like kiddie cocktails and things like that.
These will all sweeten the margarita. That's way too much. She's going in. It's just not a margarita without lime juice, even at a tiki bar. For our spirits, instead of the traditional tequila, I'm gonna be split basing. Split basing is a technique used in tiki cocktails that elongates the base that you're gonna be using for your drink. Instead of just using tequila, we're going to switch it up. The bases today that we're splitting up are going to be a Far Frais de Bois, a strawberry liqueur. This is substituted for your traditional triple sec, a little bit of spicy jalapeno tequila, and some Macroot leaf infused mezcal. We're gonna be using this Hamilton Beach blender in order to flash blend our cocktail.
This is an interesting take. So this is like a strawberry, kind of spicy, but this is what I'd expect out of a tiki bar. So like tiki bars, I feel like you go for cool, very different, very fruity drinks. So I kind of love what she's doing so far, but we'll see how it finishes. Also, that machine though, who has that?
Flash blending is a technique that's ubiquitous within the tiki scene. It just aerates, dilutes, and chills your tiki cocktail, especially when you're using crushed ice. We're gonna add a little bit of soda into the bottom of our glass so it fully incorporates into this cocktail. This cocktail, since we flash blended it, has way more head, that really nice frothy top that's just kind of laughing and smiling at you while you're drinking it. A common misconception with tiki drinks is that because they have so much ice in them, you're actually watering down your drink. More ice built on top actually makes it water down less.
Correct. Yes. It's interesting the amount of times people think that when there's more ice in it that you're like cheaping out on a drink. It is literally the exact opposite. When somebody, like if a bartender gives you lots of ice, it's not that they hate you. It's actually either they nothing you or they love you, because the colder the drink is, the longer it takes for it to melt and dilute. So you actually want lots of ice in your drink. You're not being clever by saying less ice. You're not going to be served more, probably, unless you're in like a neighborhood or like a dive bar, which is, again, those are fine. But if you're in any place that's like a little bit more upscale, you're not going to get more. Even if you ask for a tall, like that just actually adds more, usually like soda water. If you're getting like a vodka soda and you want vodka soda tall, some people think they're getting more vodka. You're getting more soda. So you're actually, and hey, maybe you're trying to drink slower. So some people know that and they're trying to do it to drink slower. Some people don't know that and they think they're like gaming the system. You're not, unfortunately. So yeah.
If I didn't put this much ice into this drink, it would actually water down much faster and you wouldn't be able to enjoy it at the proper balance that you'd like. Now it's time for the fun garnishes. We're gonna add a little bit of fresh mint. What I'm doing here is what we call spanking the mint. It just wakes up a lot of those oils that are inside of the leaves, giving it more aromatics when you first pull that drink up. Up next is a macroot lime leaf. These are the leaves that we use to infuse into the mezcal. We wouldn't really be a tiki bar without a fun little serve, so we got a custom paradise lost swizzle in here, as well as a little skeleton toy. This is our variation on a classic margarita.
That looks awesome. Also, mint on a margarita is an epic garnish instead of lime or salt. We do that at a place that I work. We call it a Hugo margarita probably because of like a Hugo Spritz has mint in it, but it adds a different dimension to it. And it works really well with that balance I just told you of honey instead of agave and triple sec.
So I work at The Bush. It is a lesbian bar, cocktail bar during the week, nightclub on Friday and Saturday night.
I love that. That's amazing. That's the name of the bar. But okay, so she's a club bartender, I think.
So after 11 p.m., we switch to plastic cups. People are drunk. They're breaking things. We don't want them breaking our glassware. Yep. So nonetheless, I still rim the glass with tahini. We're going to start with lime juice, some Cointreau, because it's better than triple sec.
That's true. If you're going to put triple sec in it, do Cointreau or Grand Marnier. Don't do the cheap, bottom of the barrel triple sec. That's all just straight sugar. I actually like Grand Marnier a little better, but they're almost the same.
Girls at The Bush like their drinks a little bit sweet, so I do a couple dashes of simple syrup in the margarita, and no one ever complains. Espolón, it's a good mid-level tequila. It's pretty non-controversial. You want to shake the hell out of it. We just dirty drop quicker, and it's still delicious. If you want a little extra lime, boom. I keep saying boom. I don't know why. I think I'm on a cooking show.
You are on a cooking show. I think that's fine. A dirty drop, by the way, a lot of people don't know what a dirty drop is. So when you shake a drink, right, and with a bunch of ice, you typically strain and keep the ice that you use to shake outside of the drink, even if the drink itself comes with ice, just because then you don't have like little chips of ice and it's not small ice. You have fresh, bigger cubes that kind of present a little bit better. But what's called a dirty drop is when you just take the ice that's in there and, like you saw her do, drop it into the drink, and that's it. And maybe you'll top it with a little bit more. That's super common, I would say, especially for a margarita, specifically that kind of drink. Like people are a little bit more forgiving with how it comes out as long as it tastes good. And it's super common in high volume bars like clubs, even neighborhood and dive bars, certainly like music venues, like they'll just dirty drop because it's faster and it's not that controversial, like she said.
It's a perfect margarita.
The margarita, to me, is the party cocktail, and Flair is sort of the party aspect of bartending. Flair is just manipulating your tools in a really fun and exciting way to give your guests a little extra experience. I'm gonna make a margarita, so first I need to grab a tin to pour stuff into.
Yeah, Flair, as you just saw, is basically like, it's almost like juggling. It's like trick shots with bartending. I'm really jealous of Flair bartenders because I don't have the willpower or discipline to want to get good at it. But it's a really cool, impressive thing to do. And it's, you know, there's like even Flair competitions and stuff like that where people will see who can do the best, you know, tricks while making drinks.
We're going to start by putting just a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. Again, the idea behind a margarita is that it's supposed to be a beautiful balance of sweet and sour. We're going to do fresh squeezed lime juice. So many bars and restaurants cut corners and they buy pre-juiced juice. When you use a Blanco tequila, you get sort of notes of minerality to it, like a slate Combier. I think it is one of the better triple secs out there. To me, you don't need salt in a margarita. I find that salt was used back in the day for the fact that salt kind of dulls your senses and your taste buds. By using salt, it's kind of allowing you to use lesser products. I have no judgment on it. I just don't think it's necessary.
I don't know if I think it's to hide lesser products. I think the salt kind of balances the sweet and sour of the cocktail. So I totally, like, a good margarita doesn't need salt. It doesn't have to be part of it. But if you like that balance of flavors, I think it's appropriate. I'm somebody who prefers a salt or even a tahini on my margarita because I think it balances out the sweet and the sour of the margarita itself. And also that sourness, especially if you're using fresh lime juice, can come off a little abrasive, and the salt, for me, helps balance it. But totally fine. Do you follow your heart, Flair bartender?
I like the expression that when you shake a cocktail, you wake it up. And a margarita is certainly a cocktail that you want to wake up. So we're going to give it a nice good shake. Another thing a lot of bartenders make the mistake of is they don't put fresh ice in their glass. They just do what is actually known as a dirty dump, which is where you simply take the cocktail and just dump those ingredients that you just shook into the glass. So I'm going to add fresh ice so that way the drink doesn't over dilute. And we're going to strain it out with our Hawthorne strainer. So we'll strain this out. We'll make a beautiful margarita. So some people just put it on the glass, but I'd prefer to throw it in like that. Margarita.
I love that. Yeah, that was an important thing he said too. When you do a dirty drop, it does make the ice melt faster because it's smaller cubes. The smaller the cube, the faster it's going to melt. That's why drinks that like are meant to be sippers, like let's say Manhattan served down or an old fashioned, oftentimes will be served with like one of those big cubes because they melt slower. And a sphere actually melts the slowest because it has the least surface area. And so for drinks that are more of sippers, you don't want the dilution, like it to get super diluted because it'll mess with the flavor. You would use certainly fresh ice and maybe even a bigger cube, which I think we saw the first gal bartender used a big cube for her margarita, which I don't see that often. And I don't actually like that. I'm okay with it melting a little bit.
I got an applause. Boom.
Everybody's saying boom in this episode. I'm going to start saying boom. I want to say boom.
I work at a neighborhood bar, and margaritas are a common order. People expect their margaritas to be in a glass this large, and it's just not really the traditional margarita. So I've kind of come up with an adaptation that you don't have acid reflux for the next 4 days. Starting with ice in the glass, I add the tequila. Espolón's a fantastic tequila. It doesn't have any artificial flavors. Triple sec would be next, or Cointreau, whatever you have. Any orange liqueur would be fine. So most neighborhood bars would use a sour mix off the gun, but I do my own because I find it to be too acidic. So I do lemon, lime. And that being said, I even add a little simple syrup into mine just to cut the acid just a little bit. I just do a quick rim of the glass with the lime. A lot of people will just use salt, but I like to use tahini. And then in the glass, you're going to want to put some fresh ice. And then just give it a really good shake.
This gal's really zhuzhing up what you get in a neighborhood bar. I like it. She's making her own sour mix. So even if that was like pre-bought lemon lime, the fact that she's making it instead of going off the gun, which is going to be basically like a syrupy, sweet, like it's going to be bad, I think. It's just going to be very sugary. It's going to be like almost like having a Sprite. But I like what she's doing. She's really zhuzhed this up and classified it in a place where you don't necessarily need the fanciest, most craft drink. So I like what you're doing, neighborhood bartender.
No strainer because I do everything wrong. Okay. And there's just a margarita.
Donahue's is a family-run steakhouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. People order margaritas, I'd probably say maybe a quarter of the time. We have our shaker glass, gonna fill it with some ice. Cointreau is a classic addition to margaritas. margaritas. It's an orange liqueur. Very smooth. A lot of people, if they want to cut cost, will use triple sec. If I don't use this, I'd use Grand Marnier. Now,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you'd want either Cointreau or Grand Marnier or omit it completely.
pour in my lime juice. It's smooth. Some of the lime juice you use is bitter. So
I don't know what that lime juice is. I'm not a fan of using pre-bottled juices for a drink, especially if you're at a nice place like a steakhouse. But we'll see.
it's no fun. Tresemana, it's a very smooth Blanco tequila. I free pour all my drinks at Donahue's. All of my bartenders free pour all the drinks at Donahue's. There's no measurements. My father, years ago, would have me set up with bottles of water and ice cubes and have the proportions correct so you knew exactly what you were doing. I don't know why it adheres to the rim of the glass the way it does, but coarse margarita salt works the best for us, so we use it.
Free pouring is an interesting practice. I think free pouring's fine if you're like in a high volume place and are experienced in like practice. But typically in most places I've worked, which have all been like either craft cocktail places or like specialty drink places, we typically recommend using a measurement, like a tool called a jigger, which measures out the ounces of your alcohol. And you do it for two reasons. You do it, one, for consistency, because even like, unless you're like a world-class bartender, it's very hard to get your free pouring right, or unless you practice it. And two, it cost control, right? My father used to own a bar when I was younger. That's where I first started learning. And he was always and it was, by the way, like a neighborhood dive bar. And he was like, hey, measure out all your ingredients because it helps us control for cost, right? It wasn't really about the flavor in that place. It was just about, hey, we need to know one bottle is going to get us X amount. So I'm not a huge fan of free pouring. I think it's like, I mean, if you want to develop that skill, I think it's a cool skill. And I have done it in like only in instances of being super, super busy. But I'm not a huge advocate for it, especially with like cocktails. If you're doing like a vodka soda, you can free pour that, right? But like something like this, I would measure it out personally.
And then you just pour it in, and there's your margarita. I like to squeeze the lime into my margarita at the end of making the margarita because the flavor of the lime will be sitting right on top of your cocktail.
As a home bartender?
Yeah, I mean, as per usual, I kind of don't like that anything she did, unfortunately. I am not trying to come down on her. I think she's a fine person. I'm sure that drink tastes fine. But it is maybe my least favorite one so far. Sorry, Maureen.
I know that it can get far more complicated than this, but I like a classic, simple lime margarita. And if you can just get some fresh limes, juice them real quick, it's going to be a much better margarita. And then I've got just a little bit of simple syrup, which is really easy to make. It's equal parts sugar and water. I'm going to be using the Espolòn Blanco tequila. I personally really like the Blanco tequilas for margaritas. This is a pretty good price for one. And let's face it, I'm a home bartender, so I like it a little bit strong. And then we're going to go just a hint of this triple sec. I'm going to give this a little bit of a mix, and then I'm honestly going to taste it just to see if it needs anything else. So let's give it a taste. You know what? That's pretty good as it is. A lot of people will salt the outside of their glass. I personally have never been very good at salting the outside of a glass, so I just put it in. Throw in that lime to make it a little bit fresher. And we're in.
So that's fine, right? Like if you, here's the big thing, right? If you're enjoying the drink that you made for yourself or for somebody else and they're enjoying it, like who cares, right? In terms of like pureness of it, or if I'm trying to be a little bit more judgy, I would shake that drink and not mix it for a lot of reasons. Some of the ones were said by other bartenders on this video even, is that shaking a drink actually changes the way it tastes, right? It does a couple things, actually. It dilutes it a little bit, makes it super cold. It adds some texture to the actual drink, a little bit of frothiness, a little bit of air, which I think really adds and is kind of the point of this drink, a margarita. So for him, like, I'm sure that tastes fine. And like, if you make your margaritas this way, you're going to be happy. It's just a good, tequila lime drink. But I would at least shake it if I were going to do it this way, if I were you. And I would swap the simple for agave or honey or something like that. But otherwise, it's pretty solid and it's fine. I'm sure it tastes good. Also, and don't throw salt in your drink. That's not a meat. Like, I think that's kind of goofy.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to salt my glass. I like a half rim, just kind of gives people the option for salt. I work in a high volume bar and I make so many margaritas. I have to make them super fast.
Yeah.
Today I am making a mezcal Tommy's margarita. Mezcal, it's roasted, which is why you get that smoky flavor that's very distinct. Tommy's margarita by trade is 1 ounce of lime juice versus 3/4 ounce of agave. So I'm gonna go in. And then I'm gonna follow that up with 2 ounces of mezcal. I'm gonna throw some ice.
You can tell she's a speed bartender just by how she does everything. Like, see, like when we were talking about free pouring, like speed bartenders, usually they have to be trained on how to free pour because it's so important for where they work. But you can see her counts and how she's stopping. I don't remember what the name is called, but it's an actual technique on like purposely causing a little bit of air to go into the bottle to stop it from pouring. And you can kind of see that she has her counts almost perfectly and how quickly she's like shaking, even how she has her lime cut to quickly. You can tell she's prepared for speed, which is a different kind of thing. Also, I love a mezcal margarita. If you're somebody who likes smokier things, try swapping your margarita with mezcal.
I'm going to garnish with a beautifully sliced lime wheel. A lot of garnishes are just there as simply a garnish. It's not meant to be expressed into the cocktail. It's supposed to make it look cute.
Today I'm going to make you.
Correct. Yeah, that's supposed like a garnet. In that instance, it's just supposed to be a decoration. You're not supposed to. I mean, you can squeeze it into your juice or into your juice. Yes, into your drink if you want it more limey, obviously. It's not there for you to do like to squeeze it on your drink. Like sometimes I always think of like a lemon with fish and like it's supposed to be squeezed onto the fish for some people. I don't know, maybe a chef will tell me I'm wrong, but that's the intention I get from that. With drinks, that when they're served to you, they're ready to drink. Like you don't have to do anything with it unless you want to.
My favorite version of margarita, which is a take of the classic margarita. So a Cadillac margarita is a margarita that substitutes the triple sec for Grand Marnier. Cadillac is the most popular margarita after the classic margarita and the Tommy's margarita. Grand Marnier is going to be an orange liqueur, just like a triple sec made in Cognac, France, and adds kind of like a deeper vanilla spice kind of note to it. The Grand Marnier kind of darkens the color of the margarita a little bit more, so it might look a little bit different than your nice light green margarita. My margarita variation is going to be a Calamansi Cadillac margarita. I take a culinary approach to cocktails. When working with different chefs and different restaurants, I try to use ingredients they already have in-house. So we're using Rose's lime.
I don't know what calamansi puree is. Let's Google that. I've never even heard of that. Juice. Is that like a type of lime or something? What is this? It's a Filipino lemonade made with fresh calamansi. What's a calamansi? Yeah, it's its own fruit. A calamansi. It's kind of like it's a citrus fruit, and it does its own thing. It's Filipino. Okay, cool.
Lime juice now, which is a shelf-stable lime juice. We're using what I call my agave trinity. Reposado tequila is an aged tequila. You have raicilla. With raicilla, you're going to have a greener, more earthy kind of vibe, but it's still agave. This next thing we're using, even though I say it's in the agave trinity, it's not agave. Sotol is made from a plant that closer resembles asparagus. It really resembles like dark, super dark green grass, herbaceous. It's really fun to play with in cocktails. So I rim the glass with kind of like my house-made tahini. I use gochugaru, which is a Korean chili flake. I use a little bit of salt, a little bit of citric acid, and a little bit of MSG.
That looks kind of awesome. I think it's appropriately named. I would love to try that. I think that's a very elevated take on a margarita while still staying kind of true to form. I think that's awesome.
So I'm going to make Yukari margarita. Let's make.
This guy, I was reading the comments, and this guy does have like final boss energy every time he comes on stage, or stage on screen, I suppose. It's a stage to me. Yeah, so I'll be excited to see what he makes because he made like a green tea old fashioned last time I watched these videos.
The first, the Lost Explore Mezcal 8 Years Espadín. It gets a lot of floral notes. It's like a red berry and some acid. This is ume liqueur, homemade. This is a replacement of the triple sec. Ume is a Japanese plum. The lime can be like more green flavor profile. Ume and yukari, this more kind of lemon citrus image of the cocktail.
Okay.
So I always taste and adjust it. Perfect. For example, tomorrow lemon and today's lemon is a different acid. So you have to manage it all the time. That's why every single time I try to taste before I shake. So the yukari powder has red shiso flavor with a touch of salt. Yukari is a Japanese seasoning, usually making for the rice bowl in Japan.
The guy made a good point with the lemon and the lime juice. When you have juices, first of all, like if you're keeping them for a little bit of time, their flavor will change, especially orange juice, I've noticed. If you're somebody who is using, I don't know, maybe you drink mimosas all the time or something. But also, yeah, he's right that yesterday's lemon may be different than today's lemon. So tasting your ingredients before you mess with them will help affect and help inform the decisions you make when you're making and building cocktails.
Our shaking process is very, very specific.
That shaker he has, by the way, that's called, like, some people call that a Japanese style shaker. I've found that for whatever reason, it's the one that when people buy them from gift shops or like Amazon or whatever, that's the one they have in their house instead of the Boston shaker, which is the 2 cans. But this is the more signature, more common shaker you see in Japan. I actually don't know why. I just know that it is very common. I also know that they have their own signature, the Japanese bartenders and the Japanese style bartenders have their own signature shaking, which I think is like, instead of like 1 and 2, which is normal for like, or not normal, but common in America. The common version in Japanese is to do 3. And I think the reason is that they say it aerates it better. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I've seen people do both. I'm sure it's amazing because this guy, again, he's the final boss. Everything he makes is good.
It's called Japanese heart shake. That means not gentle, but at the same time. So you can see like control the...
Boom, see that? Move their shaker in a triangle rather than the usual back and forth.
Nice. Very precise of the temperature and try to control the aeration. Shiso on the top. Enjoy.
And of course, every margarita.
Yeah, as per usual, Japanese style one looks amazing. I'd love to try it. This was pretty solid. I think everybody did a like mid to great job. I would drink any of those and be super happy. So, yeah, that is the video. If you enjoyed this video, you want to see me react to and judge more strangers on the internet, please let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, if you made it this far, you might as well like click all the buttons, like, comment, say, hey, AJ, cool hoodie, and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like it, keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody. Pretend you were never here. Thank you so much. Bye.